What is going on, everybody? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are one step closer to the ultimate end goal. We are at the divisional round. So, looking at the games, we have four very interesting, very up in the air type of games here. So, Baltimore versus Indianapolis. This is a very interesting one, guys, because when we think about it, Baltimore has a solid pass rush, solid run stuff, but Indy has the best line in the NFL. So, I think Indy kind of has an advantage here, and Baltimore is a very run heavy team. But what is Indianapolis' defense best at? Run defense. You have DeForest Buckner there. You have guys like Darius Leonard. You have guys who are very, very, very talented on that D line. Kamoko Ture. Very talented players that definitely can make a big impact, especially against Baltimore's line, which is not as good as people think it is because it has degraded in the past year because of the loss of Marshall Yanda. But still, Baltimore's offensive line is pretty damn solid. They still have one of the best tackle duos in the NFL, hands down, with Ronnie Stanley and then Orlando Brown. But, I think that Indianapolis being able to take out Lamar Jackson's run game with obviously their superior defensive front, and then also the fact that they have some young, solid linebackers, makes this game very interesting because you're taking away Baltimore's marquee, their most crucial aspect of their offense, and when we've seen Baltimore in the playoffs, they just haven't done too well. They really they kind of choke, similar to the Cowboys. Again, sorry, Campbell Wolf, for calling out your team, but they choke. They choked against the Titans last year, and they choked against the Chargers. And it's kind of Lamar Jackson's fault. And I think it's because he's so young. He's still having time to develop. I think he'll be a little bit better prepared this time. But realistically, I think that Philip Rivers, he also chokes, but I think that the fact that he can carry a team and now he doesn't have to carry it is going to be a crucial deciding factor in this game. And, yes, I think Baltimore could definitely win this game. This is a huge toss-up, guys. Do not go off saying, I'm a Baltimore hater, because I'm going to give it to Indy. I'm giving this one to Indianapolis. I love the fact that they can chew up the run, time with the run because their offensive line is that good. And they have some very talented running backs. And I think that Indy's going to win the game of possession. The linebackers for Baltimore are not super elite. Patrick Queen is still we haven't even seen if he's actually good. And he's a rookie, so it's not like he is fully developed. He's still very raw. So it's not like there's a CJ Mosley here. If CJ Mosley was here instead of Patrick Queen, this would be an entirely different conversation. But there's just way too much youth at a very critical position for stopping the run that I don't feel comfortable with it whatsoever. And I think that Indy's going to win that possession game, and Baltimore is going to lose their key on offense. That's how Bill Belichick wins games. He takes out the best parts of other people's offenses. And I think that's going to lead to Indianapolis being able to squeeze the victory here. Again, huge toss-up game. If Philip Rivers starts throwing picks, again, my idea is that Philip Rivers is going to have a big bounce back year because he has time in the pocket, and he's going to have a much better system, if you guys can say that. Just the ability to run more allows him to have more freedom when it comes to passing. And I think that's going to be a crucial part in this game, and Philip Rivers will be able to choose the times where he wants to throw, and Baltimore doesn't really have much of a say. The next game, Cleveland goes to the fully rested number 1 seed in, the entire NFL? I'm not 100% sure. We got 13-3. Okay, they're both 5-1. Yeah. So, tied number 1 seed in the whole entire NFL, number 1 seed in the AFC. And this is very interesting because can Baker come out in the playoffs? And I think that Baker's going to have a huge bounce back year. Stefanski is so much better than Kitchens and whatever else they've had. Greg Williams was a very solid head coach. I think that he should have honestly stayed as the head coach, but John Dorsey got fired for a reason. And I think that The offense is super powered. Jedrick Wills, if he is the guy who we think he is going to be an all-star tackle, and you're going to have the best tackle duo in the NFL, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, even after like all the trades and stuff for Olivier Vernon. And I honestly think that Cleveland could pull this one out. Now, Patrick Mahomes is that man. He's the type of guy, he's going to be lighting it up. So we also have to discuss Kansas City's side of this. Kansas City's offense is super powered, and when you think about it, you have McCole Hardman, who's going to be taking a step forward this year. You still have Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, so one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver core in the NFL, and you have Travis Kelce. I mean, yes, they're getting older, but like a huge factor here, which we'll have to check at the beginning of the year, is Chris Jones going to be here? Is he going to be here, or is he going to be traded? So if Chris Jones is not here, this game is instantly Cleveland Browns. Hands down, 10 out of 10. But at the same time, it also might not be. But you guys are going to get mad again. I'm running with the Cleveland Browns upsetting the number one team in the NFL, Kansas City, because I think that Kansas City is getting a little too weak on defense for my liking. A little too weak. They have good safeties, but they did just lose Kendall Fuller as well back to Washington. You lost possibly your number one corner on the team. That is a big, scary loss of an asset. And I mean, yes, you have the best safety duo arguably in the NFL with Matthew and Juan Thornhill, but when you don't have corners and you have wide receivers like Odell and stuff, like it's gonna be a pain in the ass. And the linebackers for Kansas City are not top notch. You have Reggie Racklin there. Like there's no marquee player like a Leighton Vander Esch or Jalen Smith, just to call out the Dallas Cowboys because they have an amazing linebacking core. Like you don't have those extreme talents the way that you should, especially against a team like Cleveland that has good tight ends and good short route runners. Like Odell's going to be keeping Tyrann Mathieu plenty busy. So I think that it's going to be a big upset. And honestly, like Kansas City has a super high-powered offense, but Cleveland's offense people sleep on all the time. They're Super Bowl favorites last year by a lot of people, and they kind of got better. So I don't really understand the big fuss because, oh, Baker had an off year. Oh, wait, his coach sucked. Wait, isn't it said that the NFL is a coach-driven league where it's like NBA is player-driven and then like baseball is GM-driven and like the NFL is coach-driven, and then all of a sudden people just want to neglect that? So, yeah, I think people really need to check themselves and stop like speaking out of their rear. Cleveland's going to win this game. The next week, on the NFC side of this same week, Tampa Bay goes to Chicago. Man, these NFC games are games I would love to see. Like, this might be my favorite game I've ever even had to decide on. Again, guys, I haven't pre-planned this. Like, this is all on the spot. So, like, you guys are going to hear my reasoning and stuff. But Tampa Bay, super high-powered offense, very solid offensive line, still working on it. I mean, they still have pieces there. They just got Tristan Wirfs. He was my number one tackle in the draft. Tied number one with Andrew Thomas, just because like it just depends on what you want, like upside or stability, more of like a higher floor. So I think the Giants did the right move because they're more of like, oh, we want to build up and like protect Danny, and what you want to do is get a guy who's like surefire. With a team like Tampa Bay, you want the upside because of the fact that Tristan Wirfs is that upside. You win the Super Bowl. If he's just an average guy who's just going to continue progressing, who has a high floor but not a very high ceiling, then it's like you want him for the long term but not the short term. Short term guys, you want high upside. It sounds very counterintuitive, but just because of the fact that if Tristan Wirfs works out, then A, you have a franchise guy, but B, it's like you're taking a shot at the Super Bowl, man. Just go out, do everything you can. Just like they're already almost Super Bowl favorites. Just add icing to the cake. Chicago, very interesting because this offense versus defensive matchup, I think it's the number one offense versus the number one defense in the NFL. And that is a huge, huge thing. Now, guys, we've seen this narrative before. Tom Brady versus Nick Foles. Does that ring a bell? Right. The Super Bowl Tom Brady lost to the Eagles. Now, Chicago is a much better team than the Eagles were. Sorry, all you Eagles fans. Chicago is far superior in every aspect. Maybe not offensive line. Probably not offensive line. But, like, the weak suit of Chicago is the run game. The strong suit of Tampa is the run defense. I mean, yes, you had Shaq Barrett who went and got 10 sacks or 11.5 sacks last year. Great job. Again, I don't think that that's a very repeatable number for Shaq, especially given the fact that he's really, like, not done anything until now. So I think he's much more of like a 7-8 sack guy who's still very solid, worth the contract, but not a game changer. JPP's getting older, still solid. Ndamukong Suh's not a pass rusher, and then Vita Vea is also not a very good pass rusher. So I mean, Chicago has a very solid offensive line. I'm just saying that it's not as good as the Eagles. But, so I think that's mitigated. I think that Chicago's best asset is their deep wide receiver core, and the fact that Nick Foles is a solid game manager. Now, it is true, Tampa Bay has some very young, very solid corners, and some very good linebackers. So, again, very solid offense versus a very solid defense. But Tampa Bay's defense is far worse than Chicago's offense in comparison to Tampa Bay's offense versus Chicago's defense. I think it's like 1-1 versus, let's just say, 10 for Chicago, and let's just say like 12 for Tampa Bay. Like, they're still a solid, like, top 15, top 10 defense. But I think that Chicago's offense is a little bit better. And, like a Bears fan just brought up in the comment section of my last video, they're at Soldier Field in the winter. Tampa Bay is not ready for that. Tom Brady might be, but the rest of Tampa Bay is not. Chicago wins, and Brady does not get his Super Bowl. Good luck next time. The next week, we have Arizona going to San Francisco. So you're in Santa Clara. They're fully rested, so we have to analyze the teams again. The pass rush and the run stuff for San Francisco is top notch, possibly number 1, number 2 in the NFL. These teams definitely have like the number 1, number 2 defenses in the NFL, in my opinion. And linebacker wise, you have Fred Warner, very solid. I mean, if Reuben Foster worked out, like, can you imagine how insane this entire team would be? But the corners are kind of lacking. I'm not going to lie. I know Richard Sherman had a resurgent year, but he is getting older as well. Regression does hit, regardless of whether you like it or not. Arizona has the best wide receiver core, arguably, in the NFL as well. Like, it's a toss-up between, like, these three teams right here. And they don't have a very solid tight end, but San Francisco does have Fred Warner, so it's not really a huge deal that Arizona can't use a tight end, because the fact Fred Warner's damn good. Now, they are in Santa Clara, and San Francisco has an extra week of rest. So this is kind of key. And we have to let's look at the week before and see what happened. Arizona beat Dallas. So is it really like they needed to continue to gas themselves out against Dallas? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So it's not like Arizona's going to be completely fried versus a fully rested team, but we still have to look at it. Safeties, I mean, San Francisco, like, they're damn solid as in the front seven. I'm not very confident. I don't know why they are so good in their secondary, like last year, but the fact is that they worked really well. I don't think that's very repeatable. And here's why. The fact that, okay, there's a player who I'm thinking of. I keep forgetting his name. David Amerson. Perfect example. He was arguably a top 5 corner in the NFL for for about one season, and then he was definitely like top 15, top 20 for a good 2 to 3 years. Now, he's not even on a team anymore. There was just randomly out of nowhere, he just became ass. Just gone. Literally, just what the? He's not even on. I don't even think he's on a team right now. I'm pretty sure I played Madden the other day. He was in the damn free agent pool. So I'm not sure if he's on a team, but the fact is he's floating around, and top 5 corner to floating around means that it's very hard to be very consistent. Richard Sherman, I think, is solid. But the rest of the team, I have not seen them take that step. Now, doesn't mean they can't. Definitely doesn't mean they can't. But still, San Francisco's defensive secondary is a little bit suspect to me. And that's why I'm kind of leaning towards Arizona right now. But let's look at the other side. Arizona, their offensive line is not nearly as good as San Fran's defensive line. So that's going to cause some problems for Kyler. But at least Kyler's mobile. So there is the ability in order for him to be able to get out of the pocket and do some crazy shit. So, I mean, I think he's also like top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Like, I think he's absolutely amazing. And the running game, you're going to be able to spread out the defense, so the defensive line's not nearly as effective, even though Bosa is an absolute animal. Hopefully, I mean, this is without injuries, but hopefully he stays healthy, because obviously he had like that ab injury, I'm pretty sure, back in Ohio State that made him miss his last season. But still, on the other side, San Francisco, you have Trent Williams added to a great offensive line, so arguably one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. But you have one of the better pass rushes in the NFL, guys. You have Chandler Jones there. He is arguably the most underrated player in the NFL, hands down. Like very, very possibly the most underrated player. Like 19.5 sacks, man. Like, he's been doing this consistently. He's a beast. In the secondary, super solid. You have Pat Pete, the veteran, versus Murphy, the young rising star. And you have Jordan Hicks. And you have like all kinds of players that have a shit ton of talent. And the one thing Arizona doesn't really have the best of is interior defensive linemen. So the run stuffing is not the greatest. Wait, San Francisco are possibly trading Raheem Mostert, and then they also lost their other tailback to the Miami Dolphins. So now they have Jerick McKinnon, okay? And I think they still have Jerick McKinnon. They have Tevin Coleman as well. So not really the best duo in the NFL. And I think that means San Francisco is not going to be as run heavy as we think. Now because Mostert was a huge reason. Like, I'm pretty sure he had 4 touchdowns or something in like one of the playoff games. Like, he's a huge asset. These guys, they're losing a lot of speed, and that's going to take away from the run game. And also the linebackers are going to be able to deal with a slower running back core. So looking at the wide receivers, you have a good secondary versus some solid wide receivers, solid young wide receivers, and a game manager. I'm giving this to Arizona. I think the number 1 seeds both get knocked out. Now, Santa Clara, the wind and stuff, it's going to be a big issue. However, I think Kyler freaking worked up, like, he was in, like, damn Oklahoma, okay? You think that wind's gonna stop a dude from Oklahoma? Yeah, okay, you kiss my ass, you know? Like, whatever. I know you guys are not gonna like the fact that Kansas City and San Fran can't even go back, but I mean, how often do you see a repeat of, like, Super Bowls? It just doesn't really happen. And that's for a good reason. And I think that's because Arizona is just that team. They're absolutely beastly. And honestly, guys, like, the more I think about it, I should have given them a win against Seattle, which, A, would have kicked Seattle out of the playoffs and brought New Orleans in, but would have made them the first seed. So I think that Arizona should have been the first seed in the NFC, but they aren't, and it doesn't matter because they just knocked out the first seed. And let me know what you guys think. Again, like, huge upset here, huge upset here. My picks are for here and here. Again, upset here. And then over here, I mean, this is an upset too. Like, all of these are upsets, but they're reasonable upsets. And that's because I have faith in Nick Foles, in Phillip Rivers, in Kyler Murray, and in Baker Mayfield. Those are key things. So let me know what you guys think. Again, super controversial. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you on the far side. Peace.